Welcome back to the Deep Dive. You've handed us a truly challenging piece of source material today, and we're ready to unpack it.
It's definitely a heavy one.
We are diving deep into a 1980 address by Reverend Sun Myung Moon. It's titled The Gospel of Indemnity, the Standard of True Love.
Yeah, this is foundational stuff, but it is not easy listening. So our mission for you, the learner, is really to meticulously dissect this material.
Okay.
We need to understand a radical redefinition of core spiritual concepts. I mean, it challenges almost everything the modern world holds dear.
Right.
We're looking at what this source asserts is the highest form of goodness, why suffering is not just optional, but essential, and what this text claims is the very secret of success.
And it all centers around this one principle.
One single demanding theological principle: indemnity.
And this was a serious teaching, a speech given July 1st, 1980, and it lays out this extremely high historical and spiritual standard for unification church members. It's almost like a rule book for restoration.
A rule book where all the rules are designed to be counterintuitive.
Exactly. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning and unpack this standard of good that the source demands.
The premise for the whole thing is, well, it's universal. Cause and effect. Everything you do, say, or even think has a consequence. So the world requires a standard of good.
An ironclad standard.
Ironclad and undeniable. And the founder argues this standard has to be placed even above national law. It's just not enough to be a law-abiding citizen, a good American, a good Korean.
That's too low a bar.
Way too low for spiritual restoration. God requires a spiritual standard that transcends any earthly legality.
So if the standard is higher than just civic duty, how does the source define the best person? Because it's completely inverted from what we'd normally think.
It is. The text says God selects the best person not based on comfort or wealth or who had an easy life. No, he chooses the one who observes the most difficult standard.
The difficulty itself is the metric.
The difficulty is the metric. And the source gets very practical with examples for its members. Things like fundraising or witnessing in the extreme heat of summer when everyone else is taking a nice, comfortable vacation.
That willingness to embrace discomfort.
Yes, to pioneer new territory under duress. That's the proof of spiritual readiness. It implies that, true value can only be proven when conditions are at their most challenging.
I have to pause on that for a second, though. If success is proportional to misery, and the selection criteria is based purely on difficulty, doesn't that create a theological incentive to, seek out hardship, maybe even neglect your own well-being, just to increase those indemnity conditions? It sounds almost like a competition for suffering.
Well, the source material does address that by stressing the happiness in the work. It's about willingly and happily embracing the difficult path, not just, grudgingly performing painful tasks. And this mindset, it just completely rejects the idea of being in between.
No middle ground.
The founder is crystal clear on that. If you are not actively pursuing the good, you are bad, period.
And what's the consequence of ignoring that binary?
The text claims that if you live in a sort of matter-of-fact way, not seriously thinking about whether your life meets this standard, you are, and this is a quote, swindling the world.
Wow.
You have to consciously decide which side of that extreme binary you're on.
And here's where the material provides one of those really surprising details, the kind that sticks with you. It links this internal standard of difficulty to a person's external presentation.
Oh, this is fascinating. The connection the source draws between physical appearance and spiritual depth. I mean, we live in a society that is constantly rewarding attractiveness.
But this text suggests the total inverse.
Precisely. It notes that the less handsome or, attractive a person is, the more likely they are to have greater spiritual depth. The idea is that they have to compensate for a perceived inferiority with seriousness, with diligence.
Their path has just automatically been more difficult.
Pushing them toward a higher spiritual standard.
Yes. And that detail, it just reinforces this whole theme. And there's that great story the founder tells about his own kids. They started summer school and came home complaining their teachers were terrible.
Right, because they made them work too hard, give them heavy assignments.
And the response was the ultimate paradox of this whole theology.
If you think they are terrible, then they must be good. The guidance is explicit. The ones who challenge you, who place the heaviest demands on you, those are the good ones. The real danger is the convenient person.
The one who seeks an easy life.
And allows you comfort. The difficult teacher is the one setting the proper high standard.
And that sets the stage for how success is measured here. The founder states that the greatness of his own mission, it's derived directly from the sheer volume of his suffering.
He claims to have drawn the most miserable lot. I mean, the tasks others refuse. Solving deep moral problems, uniting young people, confronting the massive ideological challenge of communism.
So this gives us a radical redefinition of greatness for you, the listener. It's not about being big and powerful or having nice manners.
Not at all. In this context, greatness means you have survived miserable situations, the fiercest fights, the most intense opposition. So when people look at the Unification Church and say, wow, they've achieved great things, the logic is they are, without even knowing it, recognizing the tremendous misery that was required to get there.
And this all leads us to the core law that drives this whole process: indemnity. We
Yeah.
really need to stop and define this because it's not a common term for most people. What exactly is this law?
Okay, so indemnity is presented as the required payment to restore what was lost in the fall. It's like a kind of spiritual collateral.
And it's fundamentally counterintuitive.
Completely. From a self-centered viewpoint, the source calls it the worst idea imaginable. Yet from God's perspective for the world, it's called the best, the very engine of success.
Why the secret of success, though? What does it do?
Because of its claim of time compression. This is the radical nugget of knowledge here. Through indemnity, through paying this price of difficulty and suffering, you can collapse the timeline for restoration.
So you can
At what?
speed things up.
The source claims you can achieve in one step what might take 100 steps, or in 1 year what would normally take 100 years. It's an acceleration mechanism.
But the fuel is sacrifice.
The fuel is sacrifice, and that makes the condition for triggering this deeply uncomfortable. The text is totally unapologetic. You have to become miserable. And in fact, the more miserable, the better.
That's an actual quote.
It is.
Yeah.
The founder calls indemnity a blessed word and the gospel, and he urges the listener to apologize in your heart if you don't like it yet.
It forces a confrontation with our innate desire for comfort. If you can get 100 years of progress in 1 year, but that 1 year has to be maximally agonizing, that's an intense spiritual calculation.
It is, and it's all tied to the concept of lineage and the fall.
Okay, for the learner, why does this matter? Why lineage?
The founder explains that the fall corrupted God's pure lineage. It broke the fundamental nature of humanity at the source. So to get that pure lineage back, the source insists humanity must first establish a pure standard of true love.
Which requires a total reversal of the natural order of things.
A total reversal. Without the fall, it would be lineage first, then love. You're born pure, you're loved purely, you love purely.
Right.
Simple.
But because the lineage was corrupted?
God has to reverse it. He has to establish the true lineage through true love. The love has to come first to restore the lineage. It's a crucial step.
Which brings us to the most demanding part of this address: the standard of indemnity love. We need to define this very carefully.
We can break it down into two types. You have regular love, which is, loving something you already like, your friends, your family,
The easy stuff.
the easy stuff. But then there's indemnity love. It requires the spiritual opposite, loving something you don't like. Or, more to the point, loving your enemy.
And the text says everyone has to fulfill this condition.
Everyone. But it pushes it to an absolute extreme. The ultimate test is this. You must not only love your enemy, but you have to love his sons and daughters as if they were from your own lineage.
And here's the staggering detail, which we're just presenting it as the source states it.
Right. This love must be so great that you're willing to sacrifice your own child, your own lineage, for the sake of the enemy's children.
That is just. It confronts the most deeply ingrained human instinct of parental protection. You have to be willing to give up your most precious possession for your historical opponent.
Until you reach that level of self-sacrifice, you haven't met the standard. And the founder, he cites the crucifixion as the ultimate historical example of this.
But he frames it in a very specific way.
It's framed as God demonstrating indemnity love by loving his enemy's sons and daughters, humanity more than his own son. He allows the sacrifice for the sake of the enemy. This, the text says, sets a revolutionary standard that Satan cannot accuse.
So if this applies to the spiritual realm, how does the address translate this indemnity standard to the geopolitical realities of 1980?
It gives a very pointed application to America, specifically around the Nixon and Watergate crisis. The source claims that America's spiritual and physical decline started then.
Because it failed to follow the spiritual advice given at the time.
Exactly. The nation didn't forgive, love, and unite. They had a chance to pay a collective indemnity through unity, but they failed to meet that standard.
And that failure had a domino effect.
It placed the burden elsewhere. The consequence, according to the source, was that the Unification Church had to step in and bear the cross America should have. They supported the country through their own indemnity, even while facing massive, unanimous criticism.
This also extends to the Cold War, to communism.
Yes, the source argues the goal isn't just a political or military victory. The fight isn't to wipe out communists. The goal is actually to save them, which requires risking lives and immense spiritual energy.
And this is where we get that deeply spiritual prediction about the struggle.
That's right. The founder states that the spirits of those who were massacred by communists will become agents of conversion. They'll bother the communists' own children, give them painful dreams, existential anxiety.
Proving the spirit world exists and initiating change from within the enemy's camp.
It frames the whole global struggle as a spiritual battle, waged across generations and dimensions.
And shifting from the global to the intensely personal.
Uh-huh.
The founder is presented as the ladder of indemnity for his members. Climbing it is a life-or-death situation.
It is. He requires members to completely disregard all criticism. From family, from their nation, from anyone begging them to leave. The message is stark. If you let go of the ladder, you fall and perish. You forfeit restoration.
And he reinforces his authority to set this impossible standard by claiming he paid the price first.
He says he's eligible to stand at the top because he's already done everything he's asking of them. But he still chooses to go as low as possible. The standard is attainable, however painful.
This even applies to marriage.
To the most personal relationship. Members are encouraged to accept marriage to people they might not immediately like. Someone less educated, maybe? It's an indemnity condition. They have to remember they might have married their enemy.
That's so foreign to modern romance. You're explicitly told to ignore personal preference, to accept hardship as a prerequisite for marital success.
And he illustrates it himself. He says he fully expected to be given the ugliest woman as part of his own indemnity, but he was ready to receive her. The standard supersedes all personal desire.
So finally, there's a note of promise about all this relentless difficulty. It won't continue forever.
Right. It's part of a necessary transition period when goodness has to fully overtake evil. The law is temporal. The ability to embrace and understand this painful law is presented as the ultimate proof that the Unification Church is on the side of goodness.
So what does this extraordinary deep dive mean for you, the learner, taking this text? It posits a really profound counterintuitive path. The way to the highest spiritual reward is not ease or comfort.
It's actively seeking out misery, difficulty, and loving what you actively dislike. It demands a complete inversion of your personal motivation.
And the ultimate reward for enduring this road
is the restoration of the heavenly lineage through matching and blessing ceremony. But the source is extremely clear on the stakes. If you are unwilling to go this way, you cannot be connected with God, and you will perish. It frames indemnity as the only way.
That's a staggering commitment, a powerful, demanding worldview. And that leaves us with a final thought. If the ultimate standard of true love requires you to potentially sacrifice your own family's well-being to save the children of your enemy, how would our modern world, which values comfort and self-care above almost everything else, ever define spiritual success? And how far truly are we from becoming that convenient person the source warns against? That's something to think about until the next deep dive.